This is Barbara Mel Goldman with Channel 22, and I'm very happy to be here today and introduce a good friend and a very knowledgeable person on many important topics. Today we're going to be talking about positive personal identification. Hello, Bill. This is Bill Peter. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, Bob.
Well, nice to see you, Bill. What is the purpose of positive personal identification?
Well, I will explain a little bit about identification first. When you ask people for their identification, they often think in terms of their birth certificate or their credit card or their driver's license or their social security number.
Exactly.
Those are things that are their identification. And we put them in our wallet or our purse, and we have those things to prove who we are. Unfortunately, it turns out that those are not positive personal identifications. Those are documents. And people have fraudulently changed birth certificates, and they have stolen other people's credit cards. And so there's identity theft and so on. And there are documents that say who you are, but it's not complete. Now, the positive personal identification is, how can I be absolutely sure who you are? It requires biometrics. A biometric means something biologically about you that nobody can change, nobody can steal, nobody can be fraudulent about. And that, for example, is your photograph, your fingerprint, and your iris scan. It turns out that your photograph is distinctive, your fingerprint is only your fingerprint, and your iris scan has another dimension of uniqueness that's like a fingerprint. It's an iris scan print.
I never heard that word used.
Now, if you have those three, a photograph, a fingerprint, and an iris scan,
How do they do an iris scan?
Okay, that's another subject.
Okay,
I'll get into it.
all right.
So I'll describe that. But I want to start off with normal identification systems. Normal identifications, this is a credit card. Okay?
Yes.
And on the back of a credit card is a black stripe. This is our CAM card here at Sun City Grand. And the back is a black stripe. Now, we kind of know what that black stripe is because people put that black stripe into a reader and they say, yes, that's the right person, right? They know that's your name. It scans. This black stripe is very, very old technology, over 20 years old. Technology has moved way ahead of the amount of information that you can put here is very minimal.
What is the information?
The information in that black stripe is minimal. In the case of the CAM card, it says your name, your CAM number, but it doesn't have your social security number, and it doesn't have your driver's license or anything like that because you couldn't fit all that information in there. Now, just a black stripe is an inadequate amount of information. What we want to have is biometric information. Now, if we take your photograph and your fingerprint and your iris scan and have all three of them, nobody can fraudulently make up your identity. That is your identity. And nobody can steal your fingerprint and your iris scan. And therefore, we can have an identification card, which is a positive personal identification that is able to protect your identity, and nobody can steal it because it's only you have that fingerprint and iris scan, for example.
Well, as a futurist, why do you feel that now is the time to launch a positive personal identification initiative? Why now?
A couple of things that are happening right now, and one of them is the 2010 census. Every 10 years, the United States has a census, and it turns out that they start planning ahead so that the 2008 and 9 and 10, in that period, all the census will happen. Now, census information has a lot of marketing information and so on, and there are useful and non-useful things in there. My personal view, nobody should be asked to write down whether they are black or Caucasian or Latin American or Asian or whatever. That is a very, very biased question and shouldn't be done in a census. For example, Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods can't answer the questions because his mother is Asian, his father is a mixture of American Indian, black, and Caucasian. So Tiger Woods has said, I'm really a Caublasian.
A Caublasian.
Caucasian and black.
And Asian.
And yet he wins the Masters tournament, and people say, first African American ever to win, or first black ever to win. And he said, that's an insult to my mother.
It's incorrect.
Because his mother is from the Far East. And really, he is less than half black. He's less than a quarter black. And yet, we have gotten our culture to talk so much. Martin Luther King didn't say that. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that my children will not be measured by the color of the skin, but the quality of their character.
And he was right on.
If Martin Luther King said the quality of the character, says that all decisions should be colorblind. Mm-hmm. We should not be taking that into consideration. And in our media, and even in our census, we're asking people, are you Latino, all this stuff.
What good is it? What purpose does it serve?
It perpetuates racism.
Oh, yes.
Instead of saying we don't need that anymore because there is no racism in the United States, which is true, we perpetuate it. Now, having people's photograph and fingerprint and iris scan, that is them. And what we're envisioning is a card which has no financial information on it. Nothing about your bank accounts. Nothing about your driver's license. No medical information, anything like that. Only your name, your address, your photograph, fingerprint, and your iris scan. Then that is really a positive personal identification system. It can tie in with the 2010 census to answer your question, why now?
Okay, why now? I think that you have a very valid reason, and it's important. It's an issue I never thought about this card, but I do think about people having to identify themselves, and when there's such a different way. But again, I'm coming back to this iris scan, because if it's the first time I'm hearing it, it may be others that are not aware of it. Please give me a glimmer of what that's all about.
When you go, recently I went to get a new passport. And you stand on a certain line and the camera takes a picture of you. So you have a picture taken to get a passport.
Yes.
You have been in banks and other places where they have asked you to put a fingerprint. If you haven't, the technology is available to take your picture. The technology is available for your fingerprint.
Right.
And then an iris scan is just a close-up of your iris. It doesn't hurt. You just keep your eyes open just like you're taking the picture.
And they just take a picture
and
of
they
it.
take a picture of you. And it doesn't touch your eye.
It's a very small picture.
It's a small picture, but they can blow up that iris scan, and it just looks like a fingerprint.
I think that's marvelous.
So now you have another identification. So it's positive. For example, if everybody had one of these positive personal identification cards, name, address, fingerprint, iris scan, and photograph, the people who had them could go through the airport presto quicko, because they would be very easy to identify, and they would know. The people that didn't have one could be illegal, could be terrorists, could be whoever, and that identification system would be very helpful.
Yeah. So then, in other words, it would be stamped into it could be, the fingerprint would be a permanent part of the card electronically.
It'll be a smart card.
Smart
A smart
card.
card means it's got electronic content of all that information. And that could be, when you're going through, it flash on the screen would be your photograph would flash on the screen, and they'd know that you're the person that went through, and it would be, you've proven who you are. Now, we should consider this more broadly. I've had some very interesting conversations with people. I had a meeting with Sheriff Arpaio recently, a personal meeting with he and one of his chiefs, and talked about what he knows in the immigration issues. But there's much broader use of this.
Well, I'm going to stop and ask you, is anybody opposed to this? Are there any organizations of any type that would be strongly opposed to positive personal identification?
Well, I'll be broad and then a little bit nasty. Broadly, criminals would not like to have this happen.
But that's not an organization. I'm just
No.
wondering if there were any businesses or...
Well, but the point is, criminals don't want to be identified.
No.
So what do? They wear a ski mask when they're going to go rob a bank. They hide their looks of their face because they might be identified by their face. And what do banks do to try to... They have a camera going on, so everybody that comes up to the counter, they're seeing the picture of the people.
Right.
So they're looking for the face, and if they come up with a ski mask, there is no face, and so criminals don't want to be identified, and honest people are happy to be identified.
Yes.
And what we can...
There's no opposition other than criminals? I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
are there any organizations that don't like the idea?
primary organization is the American Civil Liberties Union.
They don't like it.
And the reason the American Civil Liberties doesn't want it is because they have a concept that you will go beyond just fingerprint, iris scan, and photograph, and you will try to capture people's intimate information, like their medical records. You know, what drugs are they on? They even said they'll probably try to figure out what books you pick up at the library. And, you know...
It's a little far-fetched, isn't it?
What kind of clothes you buy, what kind of pizza you like, what airlines you use, and if you had a credit card that was every bit of information about you, that would be tremendously privacy intrusion. Okay? So I have recognized, and I respect the ACLU. I think they're on to a right track, and that is, do not have a national database. Do not have any financial information. Do not have any medical information.
There's a limit to what you can do.
Do not have your credit card information or your driver's license information. None of that, social security number, none of that's in this card. So the ACLU is correct in saying if you extend this too far, your privacy is in jeopardy because so number one, no national database. Number two, none of those other kinds of information except your identity. But that still is a good card to have because you can prove who you are. You can get in and out of the airport clear because of your identity. And yet, one card will solve 5 kinds of criminal problems. If you want to avoid crime, make sure that everybody has to identify themselves. If you want to avoid identity theft, make sure that their biometric measures are their identity proof, not some forged document. So reduce crime, reduce identity theft. If you want to have less terrorist threats, make sure that we have photograph, iris scan, and fingerprint of everybody. And then if you want to have less voter fraud, use this for voting. Now, so this is an identity card that is unique. It does not exist today. It is very possible, economical, quick, but we have to get it accepted, and that's the challenge that I've been working on.
You know, I see that travel would be much more comfortable, if you will, to be able to go and know that the ones that are getting on that plane with you are not a threat to you because of this identification. Is there any way that this could be started on an experimental basis to see how it works?
I think that's the work I've been concentrating on. After you know the technology is feasible, then you say, how can it be done economically and reasonable? And the pilot programs where you get experience and I think could probably be best done by the free enterprise segment of the society and not government.
Free enterprise.
I sat down with Sheriff Arpaio, and I've sat down with other people in government, and they say, oh, we've got to control immigration, and we've got to control criminals going across the border, and terrorists and all that. And the average bad guy doesn't want to voluntarily come in and have his fingerprint taken and his iris scan taken. So,
but it has to be compulsory for everyone.
It has to be compulsory for everyone. But the way to start it is start it with honest people. So this is the concept that I have, and I brought it to the Sun City Grand Board of Directors just 2 weeks ago.
Beginning with the CAM card?
I said, see this CAM card? How about the next time we put out a CAM card, we don't have a stripe here, but we have a smart card, and it has photograph, fingerprint, iris scan, a full identity, and it still has the value of when you're going into a club to prove who you are. It still has that value.
With an additional safety measure.
A safety measure. But you will then be the first community in the United States, 17,000 people, let's say, are in Sun City Grand.
Right.
The first 17,000 people that have broken the barrier and have now got a new kind of identification code. And honest people have no reason to not
Why
do
not?
this.
Why not?
Okay?
They want
so
it.
now they get a CAM card. Now what do they have to do? They have to go to the CAM office, get their picture taken, their iris scan taken at the same time, their fingerprint at the same time, and they're out of there. And then we could report to the Oprah show that the first community in the United States that has 17,000 people with a new card, and we have publicity for Sun City Grand.
Yeah.
And
Or the media, or the
whatever.
newspaper.
But somebody has to start it. Now, another place, and the Sun City Grand Board is considering this. This was a surprise to them that I would make that suggestion. If you start with corporations, there's power for a corporation to be the first corporation that does something, because they get publicity. And they want positive publicity, not
that's
negative.
right,
The concept
that's right.
that I'm
Then
working
it
on right now.
catches fire.
And that is, two major retailers are Walmart and Target. And suppose, I have to imagine things before they happen. Suppose Walmart and Target said, every one of our employees will have an identification card. They have the right to get an identification card for every one of their employees. Between them, they have like 2 million employees.
Yeah, what could that accomplish? Dishonesty, do you suppose?
No. They now know that everybody who is working in their
Properly
is
identified.
properly identified. And then, if an illegal immigrant comes and wants to work, well, the first thing we have to do is get your identification card. So Walmart could say, hey, every one of my employees is identified. All the honest people have done it. If you haven't got identification, tell me your name, Jose Rodriguez, whatever the name
whatever it is.
But I want your photograph, fingerprint, and iris scan. You refuse to do it, I can't hire you. So now you're putting a way that you can hire people if they're willing to show you who they are. A criminal might not want to show you who they are. Then you can't hire them. So that way, the corporations who are hiring people don't have to depend on a forged document, because they've got a way to get a real proof, a biometric proof of who you are. Now, Walmart and Target, why would I do that? Because they compete with each other. If two major competitors, Walmart and Target, can agree with each other, connect and collaborate way of they can compete with each other on the same basis.
Yeah.
We're both going to have these identity systems.
What happens when the outside world sees
They
that
see
these
them,
major
but
companies
they're
are
major
doing
companies,
that?
and they've got 1 million, 2 million people.
We
paying.
want it too.
Now, one other thing, though, we can extend it beyond that.
Schools.
Start with Walmart and Target, starting point. I didn't start with government, didn't start with schools, started with private enterprise, because they can brag that they're starting something new for private enterprise to come to our stores. We also do it for all of the Walmart and Target customers. Now, not just 1 or 2 million people, but 20 or 50 million
It's
people.
on your card, your store card.
And now, your store card that you got from Walmart has your identity, right? The beauty of that is, every time you go with that card and you put it in their machine, you get the lowest prices that they have on every single product. You get the specials. There's three things for the price of two, or two for the price of one. Anything that is in any one of their advertisements, their internet price, everything that they have said they would offer, we're going to give you in the store this time with your card. You always know you're getting the best price that you could from the internet, the best price from any of their ads. If they've got a TV on sale for $500 on the internet, you'll get it for $500 in the store. If they've got a TV on sale in Kansas City or in Dallas for $500, you'll get it for $500. By having your identification card, you'll get the best price anywhere.
That would be something to go for. You know, Bill,
Now the consumer gets a real benefit.
Yes. Yesterday I was at a brand new Kohl's that opened in our area. And as you were leaving, if you were willing to give them your email address, then you got another 15% off. Or, for that day, or if you gave them their email address, they would give you a $5 coupon to be used in the store toward your purchases. It's an incentive to get there. They want to be able to send you their sale leads and so forth.
Corporations want to do that, and therefore there's an incentive, I think, by starting with honest people in corporations like Walmart and Target. All of a sudden you got 10, 20 million people doing it. Now you can. Other corporations will copy. It doesn't have to be paid for by the federal government. It'll be done much more efficiently by an individual corporation. The corporations will pick up the bills, and they'll get the incentive and lead it. And then it's part of the 2010 census. Because this has happened in 2008 and 2009, hey, let's do the rest of them in 2010.
Yeah. You know, Bill, I'm just wondering, how do you see this in 2010, 2030, and so on? Would you see this as a reality?
Well, I do, but I'm a dreamer, okay? And I'm a
futurist. You're a futurist.
But when you start with technology is moving, and the black stripe is dead, okay? And so these other technologies are available, and how can you make them a reality? My analysis says, going through the federal government, it will take forever, and it will be bureaucratic and very expensive, and the ACLU will fight it.
How expensive is that? I meant to ask you that. Is this technology available and at a reasonable cost?
Yes, this can be done if all of Walmart's customers and all of Walmart's employees want to do it, and we're up 1 million, 2 million, multiple millions of people. This is so inexpensive that they will want to do it for their corporation.
For their protection and good business.
They know who the employees are, they're reliable.
But you're not seeing it to be a grand fee because it's a picture.
And I told the board of directors of Sun City Grand is it would be free for all Sun City Grand people.
Yes.
The board wouldn't pay any money, the individuals wouldn't pay any money, and it would be done for them, and they'd have the benefit and the publicity of it without having... Now, in the long term, though, very long term, 20, 30 years, I want you to think ahead because technology keeps moving.
Yes, it does.
The black stripe is dead, but we need to have
more
name, address, photograph. But don't put it into a national data bank with all the other information because that gets to be privacy. So we have to clearly tell people what it will do and what it will not do. We don't want your medical information. We don't want your
Yeah,
driver's
that's-
license, your social security. Those are separate things.
Separate issue.
Because we need to protect our civil liberties. You have to look for the future that always will be an issue. Now,
But you do see this as something that...
oh, it'll be happening. It's just a matter of who does it first.
Yeah,
Right
well,
now,
so then let's talk about Sun City Grand. We could be one of the first.
well, we could be the first, and I've offered it to the board, and maybe when they see this video, they'll remember that guy presented it to the board at a chat with the board, and unfortunately, I'm a snowbird, and so I'm going to be back in Minnesota. And, but
yeah.
maybe we
But they can
continue.
communicate with you.
This is an opportunity, I think, for them. There are going to be future generations, and because I know the technology, we're going to go to a smart card which has this information in it. The next step is adding DNA,
Uh-huh.
because, prisoners, to prove a rape case, you have to have DNA.
Yes, I know that.
So DNA will be the next identifier. It's your DNA.
And nobody else
Nobody
has
else has that DNA.
That's right,
So
that's
that
right.
will be a future edition. And the next future edition is your human genome. Not too many people have studied human genomes, but that is technically feasible. So we start with fingerprint, iris scan, and photograph. 5-10 years from now, we'll be adding DNA to that personal identification card, and then we'll be adding human genome. And I hope it's still in our lifetime, but it'll be happening. And those are all biometric. Those are things you can't cheat, you can't copy, you can't fraudulently do.
Could help make us a more honest world.
And if you
And
have that-
safer, much
safer
safer.
and more honest. And if you're a criminal,
Yeah.
now to do things like get into a hospital free, get into a school free, to prove that you're an American citizen, to get a job, you
Yeah.
now need this identification card. And you have to give something, a little bit of your identification, not everything, but a little bit of your personal, who you are, in order to be willing to get the benefits of being in the United States. And then I think it will go worldwide. And eventually, it will be on your body, not a card.
A little something under the skin.
It'll be the size of a piece of rice.
Oh my goodness.
One little piece of rice, and it'll, the people already working on
How is it applied under the skin?
It's like injected, like you're getting an injection, only they inject the computer
So
all
then,
there under your skin. When you can do this when you're a 3-year-old child.
so then when you walk through a terminal,
They know who you are.
they just put a light on you or
Yes.
something on your, well,
And that's all there's to it. And you don't have to have a card, and you can't lose the card.
Bill.
But that's enough years ahead.
Yeah.
But that's how
we identify.
we identify. Now, right now, in some very, very secure locations, people
Yeah.
wave a card to get in.
Yeah.
But they'll wave your
You
arm.
just wave your arm and on you go. This has been so inspiring and so delightful. We could talk more about this, and perhaps we will another day, but you've got the idea, folks. Bill, it was wonderful being with you today. As always, I always enjoy it, and I learned so much, and I know our audience does too. For Channel 22, I'm Barbara Mel Goldman, and it's a wrap.